Kraken CEO Jesse Powell says that one Bitcoin will equal one Lambo by the end of the year. Also, even after announcing that they will continue to print money at the Fed, the dollar is breaking out today, which is putting an absolute destruction on metals and stocks, but not as much Bitcoin. I'm going to look at the charts of all those assets and talk to you about how they actually are connected and are correlated or inversely correlated. And we're going to look at all of the news that's driving markets today. There's a lot going on. Let's go. What is up, everybody? I'm Scott Melker, also known as the Wolf of All Streets. Before we get started, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel and hit that like button right down below, that little thumbs up. Now, as I said, even though the Fed basically committed to continued money printing and quantitative easing at least through the end of the year, we're seeing a bit of a surprising move from the dollar breaking out. Now, it's very important to remember that the dollar index, the DXY, is the dollar versus a basket of other currencies. So the dollar does not have to be strong for it to go up. It just has to be stronger than other currencies. Basically, it has to be the prettiest pig in the pen, so to speak. You can be a completely crappy asset, but if you're doing better than slightly crappier assets, then the number goes up. And that seems to be what's happening here. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the dollar chart. Then we're going to take a look at metals, stocks, Bitcoin, and see how they all interplay. First, we have the monthly dollar chart, the DXY. As I've said many times, this was an ascending channel since the Great Recession, all the way back to around 2010. It broke down in August of 2020, but I was already calling it bearish here if you were following last March, right? We saw this continue to go down as stocks rose from the lows in March. When the dollar shows weakness, stocks, metals, and other assets go up. When the dollar shows strength, generally all of those assets go down. So as we've seen, stocks only go up. It's only because the dollar is dropping and not because stocks are inherently strong. It's all about the denominator. When you denominate things in a currency that's being purposely devalued and dropping, of course, they all appear to go up. But we had a breakdown, retest as resistance, and then a drop. But now we're showing a bit of strength here on the monthly and a lot today on the daily as I will zoom in. I don't think that this is necessarily a macro turnaround for the dollar, but it is worth watching because if we zoom into the daily here, you can see that it was in a perfect channel all the way back since these highs of March 23rd in 2020. This is when the market started to absolutely rip because the dollar was dropping. As I said, it's been in this descending channel. Well, now it's showing strength and potentially breaking out of the channel. And these are really two strong days of action for the DXY. Now, there's a potential double bottom in play, but that would require a break of 93.437. You cannot talk about a double bottom unless you see a break of the neckline, which is the swing high between those two. It is just an idea. When people say we have a double bottom, no, we don't. You don't have a double bottom until this line breaks, but the idea is now worth watching. So you can see that we do have this local potential breakout of the dollar, which could show quite a bit of strength, which would be bad for stocks and metals. Just how bad? I don't know. Let's take a look at the Dow Jones right now. This is how the Dow Jones has been reacting to this move by the dollar. And when I say they're all inversely correlated, let's take a look at gold. Holy Schiff, so to speak. Peter Schiff, has anybody checked on him? You think he's doing okay? This is what's happening to gold the last few days. Absolute destruction. That said, if you're a supply and demand trader and you love trying to catch a falling knife and you think that the dollar will be weak again, this is actually a decent place to look for a potential trade bouncing here out of daily demand, maybe. But this is absolutely savage destruction of the dollar, which only weeks ago was at $1,917, now trading at $1,773. Ooh, this thing really shifted the bed. Now look, we have silver, absolute destruction. Again, this is retesting support here. It's breaking at the moment, but the day has not closed. And this is the EQ right here of this channel, which should theoretically act as support. Silver and gold were looking good before this big dollar move, so a bit surprising, but maybe this will catch support here. If not, and if this really loses the EQ of that channel, you could see a move in silver all the way down to $22.639 at the bottom of this channel. Now let's take a look at the relationship between Bitcoin and the dollar. As you can see, there's been generally an inverse correlation between Bitcoin and the dollar historically, going all the way back to 2012 when one peaks, the other one valleys, and vice versa. Pretty clear, but that really changed in January of this year. Bitcoin went way up and started trading on its own. As you can see this line, right? Bitcoin went up, while the dollar was going down. Well, now they both kind of went up at the same time. And even though the Bitcoin is rising a bit less here, the dollar is going up and Bitcoin is still trending up here. So it's really interesting to see that Bitcoin has truly become uncorrelated from that inverse correlation that it had with the dollar. Now, when people always talked about Bitcoin being correlated with stocks or Bitcoin being correlated with metals, that really wasn't the story. It's not. What it was is that all of them are affected by the dollar in various different degrees. Well, now Bitcoin seems to be much less affected, as you can see by the stock, gold, and silver charts that I just showed you because of this dollar breakout. Now moving on quickly to Bitcoin, I have the daily chart here. I've shared this so many times, but nothing has really changed. A lot of people talking about this impending death cross, like I've said many times. Usually that's a lagging indicator, a result of what's happened before and not as what's going to happen. But either way, the 200 MA right here acting as strong resistance. 2 candles wicked through it and then price dropped. There does seem to be a bit of reaction here to what's happening in other markets, but really this is still just chopping sideways. I don't think there's that much to see here on the Bitcoin chart, but let's zoom into the 4 hour. As you can see here, it was holding support around 38,425, has since broken. So it's going to be interesting to see where it lands. But we do have a low, high, higher low, higher high, and anything around this area that ends up closing above would be a higher low, which would confirm this higher high, and then that higher low would be confirmed by another higher high. That's how it works, sort of a cascade, each one confirming the one before. Now, if this does end up closing down here below support, which looks as somewhat likely, then this whole area here around 36,000 is really should be strong support. It's been resistance, support, resistance before and had a huge breakout from that area. So anything from like 35,000 up to the 36s above this low would be strong support and be an interesting area to start looking for a potential trade. Something I shared this morning, we had a potential bull flag here on the line chart on the 4 hour. That does look like it could be breaking down, but if price closes this 4 hour candle above 38,000, that could still look valid, break above and move up. And that would be the kind of pattern that would take us back up to around 45,000. That would be bullish. But right now that is potentially breaking down. Bottom line, guys, Bitcoin is still chopping sideways, small moves up, small moves down, very little conviction, very little volume. We need to get back up above 42,000 right here, as I've talked about so many times. And then that means getting above the 200 MA and the 50 MA, and then ultimately getting above the 43, 44 range and making a higher high. So there's a lot here that still needs to be done. We need to see bulls step in with conviction, and this kind of volume down here ain't going to do it. We're going to need to see a lot of buying, or we might be ranging and just chopping around for quite a while. So I am not that bearish on Bitcoin right now, considering what's going on with other markets and around the world. It's actually just still boring and trading sideways. I've showed you the daily chart, the weekly chart so many times. We need to get above the 42K region to really start talking about bullish. And then of course there's resistance at 43, and maybe this pushes us through up to 45. Remember when I talked about the denominator? Stocks only go up because the dollar goes down. Well, here's an interesting chart. This is stocks, the SPX, versus Bitcoin since 2015. This looks like an illiquid, low-cap altcoin just absolutely getting destroyed, and that is what the stock market looks like if you compare it to Bitcoin. In fact, it's broken support here and is retesting it as resistance. Bitcoin has absolutely destroyed all other markets. It is the best performing asset since its inception, and when you stop looking at things versus the dollar and start looking at things versus Bitcoin, you can see what an absolutely powerful and incredible asset it is. Holy shift. Anyways, let's dive into the news now. First, Pantera CEO, crypto market panic is subsiding. Now's the time to buy. The Pantera boss cited 3 primary reasons why crypto markets dumped $1 trillion in market cap. The chief executive of Pantera Capital, Dan Morehead, is confident that the big crypto sell-off is slowing because he thinks we've seen the most of the panic. This comes from their monthly newsletter, which was published on June 14. And he said, the best time to buy is well below trend. As you know, you're supposed to buy the fear, and that's what's been happening. A Bitcoin trend deviation chart backed up this claim, as it showed that the asset has only been this cheap relative to its trend for a fifth of its life cycle. He also asserted that the year-on-year returns do not indicate that Bitcoin is overvalued. The year-on-year return never went literally off the chart like in past peaks. It's currently trading at 281% year-on-year, which seems entirely plausible given the money printing that has occurred in that period. Morehead went on to explain that a convergence of 3 news events that had made the markets fall sharply. Of course, we had the clampdown in China. The second was U.S. tax day, which he believes had people selling their crypto to pay their tax bill. And third was Elon Musk's 180 on Bitcoin. Either way, it seems that the fear is subsiding from the market and it's starting to look safer to buy. That price might go up relatively soon. This one I just think is really cool. Real Vision raises $35 million in bid to shake up financial media. My friend Raoul Paul absolutely killing it. They're raising $35 million to focus primarily on crypto content. We know that what the world needs is outlets like Real Vision, who are looked at by legacy traders and other markets to focus on crypto and give good information. So I'm very confident that this will help tremendously with mainstream adoption. CNN, following in the footsteps of Time Magazine and Fox, will now be selling their collectible historic moments as NFTs. As you can see here, you can buy pieces of history on CNN and put them in your NFT collection if that is your thing. Finally, Kraken CEO Jesse Powell says crypto exchange could go public in 12 to 18 months. Following in the footsteps of Coinbase, this seems to be an obvious move, and we also know that Kraken is already legally a bank in the United States. Company recently said to be valued at more than $10 billion. Founder Jesse Powell says Kraken signups this year at record. Even Kraken, which is I think a lesser known big name in the mainstream, is doing exceptionally well, absolutely killing it this year. They have more than 6 million clients in almost 190 countries, making it the world's 4th largest crypto exchange by trading and volume, according to coinmarketcap.com. And guys, I think that the best quote from this article and the best thing that he said, which I said at the beginning, I've said 1 Bitcoin, 1 Lambo by the end of the year. It may be a Lambo with fewer options or a smaller engine at this point, but I think we're still looking at very lofty price targets. A lot of people with a lot of money and a lot of big brains are saying that they think that Bitcoin will trade much higher by the end of the year, and I tend to agree. It's never a bad time to buy Bitcoin. Guys, that is all for today. Thank you for watching. Please go ahead and subscribe to the newsletter down below. Today's issue was free, so you can check that out and see what you've likely been missing. And until next time, peace.